You guys! Welcome to Day 9 Daily number 633, where First is teaching us to be a better gamer. With this triple Nexus play. Ooh, we're getting all wiggly thinking about it, so let's go ahead and hop back into it. We've seen this nice setup that First has provided for himself. We saw how Thermal Lance came last, because it was least important. Colossus came out real quickly. Getting 3 gateways out came pretty dang quickly. Then Blink followed it up super swift, because we needed to have the Blink ability to deal with all the multi-medevac drops, especially on a map that's as pain of an ass to deal with drops on as Whirlwind. But now that we're in this position, First is going to do, I think, pretty expected transition. He's going to get about 10 gateways. He's going to get himself Churge. Next on the docket's going to be Storm. I should actually be more specific. Last on the docket, really, is going to be Storm. And pretty typically, we have the gateways being very, very idle. But in this circumstance, we actually see pretty active gateway usage from First throughout. Warping in a lot of Templar back home. I'm actually trying to find the Templar. Aha! But yeah, we have Storm going down. Boink. Now, most of the time, players tend to stop at these 10 gateways. These ones right here. First is known for getting very, very high on his gateway count. Like, super freaking high. We're going to see why. Counter-harass. First is one of the most aggressive counter-harassers in a game. Most often, we see a player like Rain halting right here and just massing up Zealots, and you can do a very nice 3 Colossus, Speed Zealot, Blink Stalker timing push. It's actually super hard to deal with. We'll have 2-1 upgrades out of that Forge. But let's see the way that First plays off his mid and late game, shall we? First, he keeps his big, old, important unit sitting back home. In particular, sitting at the most vulnerable location. Remember this spot of vision where we can't see a lot? That's where the big bulk of the army is. Stalker is moving out bravely and valiantly, encountering a Marine, so of course they're going to get the hell out of dodge. But First is primarily active with these Stalkers. Now, to highlight every ting that's going on, I gotta select the gateways. This gateway has only just built. He has 10 open warp gates right now. Where is that Zealot being morphed in? Oh, it's not actually going to show me? Okay, that's fine. Oh, there he is. There's the active Deuter. Every now and again, a couple Zealots being warped in here, but gee, we still have quite a lot of inactive gateways, especially when we add in these. This is where these observers begin to become real damn important. We see the army moving out there, so First can begin to position himself to deal with that. It's this little pylon over here. It's a nice, good threat. If this pylon were not here, a probe would very swiftly be sort of dancing around and moving up and probably building pylon here. One up here behind the minerals here. Another one up here behind the minerals. We can get one over there. We could probably get one here. Just ringing the map. And I say now is about the time that he'd be moving out. Oh, actually, oh wait, that's a Zealot. Now's the time he'd be moving out because this provides a nice threat. So, okay, he sees the army, still warping him back home. Colossus production can be constant, thanks to the fact that we have an early 3rd Nexus. We can do constant Colossus production. Ooh, yeah, look at that. We got the warp gate coming out. Ooh, it feels all fine and dandy. Little bits of harassments coming up. But with all these idle gateways, this is what gives First this opportunity. If there was a huge army here, and First pulled all the way back like that, we would see a warp in here for counterattack. Since there's nothing here, First is going to move about as far forward as he feels comfortable. And then he's going to just break Zealots off. He does this constantly. If you watched my First versus Fantasy games, First just extends the whole army forward, breaks off Zealots, and then go, go, go. Taking an expansion. I'm fine with an expansion here or here. Just whichever one's safer. This is not very safe because we just saw some medevacs try to... Or we just saw some medevacs kill off a pylon over there. So First ain't quite going to be able to break it. But that's fine. Also, once upon a time I told you don't over chrono boost this ground armor. Now it's time to chrono boost the hell out of that. Yeah, look at it. It's getting chrono boosted. Alright. Alright. First just continues to say on the farther side of the map. He sees the army down there and just warps in down here as he sees fit. Oh no. This has been killed off. First big play seems to have sort of disappeared for now. He can no longer do the big dropping, or excuse me, the big warp-ins. So we'll see how he deals with that in a moment. In the meantime, First is just doing all the usual rounding outs of tech. Getting the Dark Shrine because he's got everything else. Getting the second Robo facility. Quietly, while all this is going on, First has been warping in Templar all over the place. Let's actually see where they are. He has about 3 that are fixed here. He has another 3 that are getting ready to move out. He's got another 1 over here. He's got a few down here. No, this is actually the only place that he doesn't have them. In his main army, it looks like he only has 5 of his 12. And this is what we're going to see be the biggest tool for First in this game. So some sort of conspicuous looking High Templar placement right here. We'll talk about these setups in just a second. Firstly, we see First just trying to do these little zealot attacks, controlling mid, and soon enough we're going to see probes sort of branch out along here. Now, when would be a good time to note this? Because I want to make the statement close to when we actually see it in action. But, you know what? Now's fine. It's going to be. It's all going to be okay. So, I want you to imagine that there is a Terran army, and we're just going to say, here's what the Terran army does. It just goes attack, 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 all the way up into here. Where do you land the good storms? Again, I'm moving my mouse along where most Terran armies will attack. Let's even be more abstract. Suppose that I am a Protoss army. You're a Terran army. You're going to chase me because I'm going to be doing this, guys. Look at me. I'm the Protoss army. Come on, follow me. Come on, bring it on. All right? Bring it. The best place for storms is not during the retreat. Most people will have a Templar here, and they'll try to storm the army as it runs at them. This is unfortunate for most Protosses because the ghosts are at the front. They just kill everything off. The best angle is from the sides. An army is running down like this, where my mouse is. It's running down and right, and a stormer moves like that. That's what these bad boys are all about. This provides for great storm flanking. You flank with Stormer. We'll see it in action. This is all fine. This is just some difficult control. Only Micro can help you here. But generally, we see good techniques. We see that the entire army that does not contain Templar is in a control group. The Templar, surprisingly, only 2 are in a control group. Where are the other Templar? Oh, they've been set up for flanks. Just trying to snap off everything at the side. I think that there was some sort of drop there now. A lot of people will do Stalkers in their own separate control group to try to do some fancy stuff. And I think that's great. I like that a lot. More expansions going down, more simulators going up. Templar count can easily get quite high. Look at that nice flanking, easily picking off a bunch of those. First, in this position, starts to do some funky stuff. Alright, cool. Alright, nice. Let me actually come to this moment because the strategic switch happens right around 18. Yeah, bam! So this is where, if I'm Protoss, I'm going to be thinking, okay, crap. Most of the time, I lock my opponent onto 3 bases. If he's taking a 4th, I got to see if I can kill that off. So we can, you know, do pylons here, and we can counterattack, but man, Alive seems to have gotten this on severe lockdown. I really don't think I'm going to be able to break that through. Okay, well, then I guess my plan is now to kill off this 4th base. So First does some really smart things. Obviously setting up the Templar in these flanks, And, I mean, having the solid basic plan of trying to pick off the 4th. But now it's like, I can't really break into this. What do? How can I be effective in this position? Especially we see that there's so much stuff. So this is what we call late game. Most people would describe this as late game. Most Protoss pros would call this mid right now, because of the frequency with which it happens. You're getting these bases up, the geysers are going to start going down. These zealot counterattack drops are great should the opportunity present themselves, but you don't want to force it. So this is where first begins a transition all the way up to the Stargate. For convenience purposes, I think that forges should always be somewhat nearby cybernetics cores, because then it's really easy to just fling out all the chrono boosts. But let's look at how first does this. I'll pause it at 1930. Okay. But why tempests? I think everyone is aware of the Ghost Viking versus Templar Colossus dichotomy. Alright, cool. Ghosts try to kill Templar, so that way they can EMP. Templar try to kill Ghosts to prevent them from EMPing. Vikings kill Colossus. Colossus kill everything. Normally we will use Storms plus some Stalkers to deal with the Vikings. We'll use Colossus and good feedbacks to deal with the Ghosts, but there comes a point where really everything's there. It's all down to control. It's not really a clear bit of advice to be like, hey, Protoss will just control better. So, nah. There needs to be some other evolution for the matchup to not suck, at least. So what we're seeing now is, rather than evolving into super aggro play, which is hard given how locked up tight Alive is. And you might ask, how do I know if he's locked himself up tight and is turtling hard? Well, you'd simply acknowledge the fact that Alive hasn't attacked like at all. Like, almost at all. He's done a little bit of dropping stuff, but he's been primarily passive and expandy. This is when Tempests are really good. Tempests tend to stink at being in a lot of places at once. So in this position, I like that we're seeing first secure key locations. Imagine that this area is now locked down. I think this, for instance, is a safe thing. Is safe to call locked down, especially because we have Templar access. This is going to be very hard for Alive to drop, especially with these Templar just sort of chilling. But securing as many locations as possible is going to be great. We need anchors for this big ol' army. A whole bunch of zealots are going to be great for busting down in like a mid-game army, but we're going to be replacing the zealots with the Tempests. We're going to kind of be going for a Colossus, little bit of Stalker, lot of Templar, lot of Why did sound die? Alright, so apparently sound was dead. My bad. Let's rewind a little bit. Alright, cool. We got a crackle? Everything alright? Is everything okay? It's dead for like 3 minutes. Wow. Shit. Well. Oh, God. This is brutal. This is brutal. Check, check, check. Check-a-wreck-a-roo. Check, check, check. Doop-de-doop-de-doo. Alright. So, I was talking a little bit about what the plan is for first. And essentially, it is contain on 4 base. Normally, we have this 3 base Terran, and we can easily just go Gateway, Colossus, Templar, but once his base count gets pretty high, it's fairly difficult to deal with the Terran because he's not going to be mostly Marauder Marine heavy. He's going to have enough resources to get a lot of Vikings and Ghosts. So certainly we can do these sorts of expandy dudes. But right now, I just generally think that these sorts of trades are really smart. Actually, I will come back to this moment here, because I talked a little bit about this while I was desounded. Come on, 25 minutes. Come on, replay, work with me. If we ever are starting to feel like we got him on a contain, like this, where we can prevent him from getting another base, that's generally how I define a solid contain, is if he's just doesn't have a good way to get an additional base. We gotta check for other bases. This is a really stupid spot to expand to if you think you're gonna be spotted. But that doesn't mean that Terran players won't take it. Honestly, this is one of the easiest ways to tell a ladder-only player from a real tournament player. A real tournament player will check for expansions in stupid locations, because that's how you prevent losses in tournaments. A ladder player will be like, you shouldn't expand there, that's not going to be consistent. Enjoy your spot in the finals of that major tournament. So, I love that, love that, love that, love that. So now, this little Colossus Tempest force that would have been able to poke away at this, to nibble down the force, wounds up. Oh god, oh god, the advanced new fantastic replay features are going way too far ahead in time. Oh, quel grisement. It's very difficult for the Terran to ever really engage this, so often now he will go into base trades. So we've sort of gotten the best possible composition: Colossus to kill everything, Storm to also kill everything, and Tempest to kill off anything that would kill our 2 units that actually are killing off everything. This is fantastic. It's also a very loud composition, so I'm just going to turn that off. So what happens when these sorts of base trades inevitably wind up happening? You're kind of forcing your opponent to go for the base trade. So in order, we can sort of establish a clear plan, a clear vector for us. This very often forces this. So we should kill off the most critical 4th base ASAP. Cool. God, these things are loud. These types of exchanges are actually kind of okay for us as the Protoss. Normally you'd say never base race a Terran, but we're not exactly base racing. We're killing off the Terran's hope to do solid replenishing. And now we're going to see a very slow sort of unfolding of events. So, wonderfully enough, We have tons of Templar just everywhere, 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 everywhere. And we have the perfect force to chip away and chew away at things. We see that the Templar sort of spread out on this mini-map. Ghosts trying to step in. This is also not a big deal because, well, I mean, all these probes should actually be way the hell out of there. And we always know that Terran is not going to be able to beat us in a straight-up fight. So as long as we can cripple him, we already have our money mix of units up. It's just the usual imposition of trying to deal with as many ghosts as possible, trying to storm as well as possible. We sort of hilariously see that this nice set of photon cannons is an amazing tool for us. More Templar morphing in, whittling away at it. Alright, cool. When exactly did First begin to pull back? I think he could have pulled back just a little bit earlier to keep this base alive. This base is already shut down. But this is kind of one of these funky spots where, because we have such an amazingly strong composition, we can afford to lose bases like this. Also note that tempests remove the fact that Terran can float around on the high grounds and avoid death. And remember earlier on when I was saying that, oh yeah, in an ultra late game sense, it's mainly going to be a Viking Ghost army instead of a Marine Marauder army. If he has more of a Marine Marauder army, we actually can not build the Tempest and focus more on the gateway units. Once we get back to sort of mid-game status, which would basically be when our economies have been hurt a little bit, we should go right on back into the Zealot heavy mixtures. So having the Templar close by would have obviously been way beneficial. We see that even with 24 Vikings, once upon a time, doesn't hold a candle to Tempest. Not at all. Vikings are awful against Tempest, like amazingly awful. So as we look at that, it's really not that terrifying to be in this sort of situation, so long as you have crippled that key fourth base. We see another base attempt from Alive. First taking a base, I don't really care that much about this. This is just, you just don't lose with this army once it's like, once Terran doesn't have an econ. Yeah, we can safely trade here. So it's kind of like a cool logic that winds up emerging out of a Terran player who's on 4 bases and you can't really crack him. Just slam down 3 of those Stargates. You will make the loudest units in the world. I gotta turn it off, it's so loud. Oh hey, Zealot's breaking off from the main army. Hey, we've been using that tactic all game long. Even though Tempests are sort of comically awesome, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be careful with them. This is so good. This is sort of funny, actually, that this base finished and has some dudes mining at it, and this base... Actually, no, he only has 6 workers. Yeah, actually, it's just... So, to use sort of a funky analogy, you know how in Zerg vs. Protoss, a lot of time the Ling Muta Ing player is happy to begin a base race with Protoss, because I got Lings and Mutas, I'm faster, man. I can expand all over the map and set up all the defense I need in my final location, and I'll be in good shape. I have that magical mobility. In this circumstance, it's like doing half of that. Except instead of it being that you have a super fast army, it's that you literally have the invincible army. I would say that I'm going to use these words, but I don't like the words that I'm going to use, but it's still okay. Here's a statement I don't like, but you'll know what I mean. The Protoss late game army is basically about as mobile as the Terran late game army. I know that the Terran can load up into medevacs and can dart all over the place, but in terms of a functional fighting army, they're sort of on the same footing. The tempests are going to be able to just, like, if there's any amount of engagement at all, the tempests are just going to blast it down. Terran does get to choose the engagements. They do have that slight edge in mobility. But if you can get up your death army like this, it's totally okay to begin slowly doing the base trade, because sooner or later he's going to be forced to engage, and he will never, ever hold a candle to this if it's set up right. So when we come back in the next segment, we're going to see yet another 3 Nexus play, but let's sum up the way that First did this 3 Nexus. He identified that his opponent was going for a fast 3rd command center, and then almost immediately went for the Nexus after getting the +1 armor and the Robo. Seemed like he didn't have enough defensive tools, but then the instant Robo support bay, so that way he could get the Colossus up, and then the instant Blink research to try to get Blink up for when there would be some good medevac threats. Only after these went up did we actually see First get the range for Colossus, and then the speed for the Zealots, and the storm for the Templar. Because these 3 Nexi came up so early, it meant that First had this wonderful benefit of being able to get non-stop Colossus production, a 2nd Robo, 15 gateways, looking so nice, fancy, and schmancy. But Alive wasn't attacking at all. Alive was staying very close to home, getting a super fast 4th. Almost always Terrans go 3-base aggro, and Protoss can win with just Colossus, Templar, and lots of gateways. But because Alive went for the 4th base, First just said, cool, I'm going to go for Tempests. Very calmly began to chip away, forcing Alive to try to avoid and do other shenaniganry. This provided First the beneficial move of killing off the key bases, pulling back to defend, and soon enough the late game army for Alive was nothing compared to this Tempest Colossus Templar force. When we come back in part 3, a variant.